If I told you that some of the bluest, clearest water on this entire planet isn't sitting on some far-off island, but tucked away right here in New York, would you actually believe me? Most people picture New York as skyscrapers, yellow cabs, and crowded sidewalks packed with people rushing somewhere. Nobody pictures water so blue it looks photoshopped. Water that genuinely makes you stop and question whether you're still in the same state where you grew up. But that's exactly what's hiding upstate, tucked into mountains, sitting quietly inside state parks that most tourists never even hear about because they're too busy booking flights to places that aren't actually any better. We're talking about lakes so clear you can see your own feet from a kayak floating 20 feet above the bottom, almost like the water isn't even there. We're talking about water that genuinely looks like it belongs somewhere tropical. Except instead of palm trees, you've got pine forests, granite cliffs, and snow-capped peaks wrapped around it. I spent way too many hours digging through travel records, local guides, and park reports to track down the absolute best of the best, and today I'm walking you through 10 of them, counting down from impressive all the way up to the one that might genuinely be the bluest lake in the entire country. Stick around until the very end, because that last spot might be closer to you than you think, and once you see it, you're going to want to plan a trip immediately. Number 10. Greenwood Lake, Orange County. Let's kick things off with a lake that a lot of people drive right past without ever realizing what they're actually missing. Greenwood Lake sits in Orange County, right along the border with New Jersey, and it happens to be the largest body of fresh water anywhere in the entire state, stretching close to 9 miles from one end to the other. Now, this isn't the kind of untouched deep wilderness lake you're going to see later on this list, and honestly, that's part of what makes it so charming in its own way. There's a real living town wrapped around the shoreline here, with little waterfront restaurants, ice cream stands, marinas, and docks where families have been spending their summers for generations without anybody making a big deal about it online. On a calm, sunny afternoon, especially in the early morning before the boats start buzzing around, the water takes on this deep blue-green shade that genuinely catches people off guard, especially if their only mental image of lakes in New York involves murky, brownish-green water sitting still under a layer of pollen. Locals here know the drill. They grab a seasonal pass for next to nothing, and that single pass gets them access to the beach, the picnic grounds, and even volleyball courts set up right along the shoreline. So this isn't just a place you drive to and stare at for 20 minutes. It's a place where you can genuinely spend an entire day without getting bored. Boats glide constantly across the surface during peak summer weekends, jet skis cutting wakes, sailboats drifting lazily near the center, kayakers hugging the edges where the water stays calmer. But if you time it right and show up early, before the crowds roll in, the lake turns almost perfectly glassy, reflecting the tree-covered hills on both sides like an actual mirror stretched across the water. It's an incredibly easy day trip if you're coming from the city, which makes it the perfect entry point on this list if you've never gone chasing blue water in New York before and you want to ease into the idea without committing to a long drive or a tough hike just to test the waters, literally. Think of this one as the Gateway Lake, the spot that proves you don't need to trek deep into the mountains just to find water that's actually worth bragging about to your friends. But trust me, the deeper we go into this countdown, the bluer, the wilder, and honestly, the more unbelievable things are about to get. Number 9. Lake Tiarati, Harriman State Park. Next up is a lake that genuinely feels like stepping into a completely different world, even though it sits barely an hour outside one of the busiest cities on the planet. Lake Tiarati is tucked inside Harriman State Park, which happens to be the second largest park in the entire New York State Park system, home to more than 30 separate lakes and reservoirs scattered across thick, rolling forest that seems to stretch endlessly in every direction. Out of all those lakes hiding inside that massive park, Tiarati consistently stands out because of its sandy beach and noticeably cool, clear water that feels like an honest reward after the short drive or hike it takes to reach it. What makes this particular spot special isn't just the color of the water itself, it's the feeling you get being surrounded by walls of dense green on every single side, almost like the lake is tucked away inside its own private little pocket of wilderness that the rest of the world forgot about. Families have been coming here for decades, generation after generation, and there's something genuinely nostalgic about the whole place, almost like it hasn't changed much since your grandparents were running around as kids, splashing in the exact same spot you're standing in now. The water clarity shifts a bit, depending on the season and recent rainfall, but on a clean, sunny summer day, you'll catch patches of that gorgeous blue-green color stretching out toward the middle of the lake, especially noticeable from slightly elevated viewpoints along the surrounding trails. It's not flashy, it's not going viral every other week on social media, and honestly, that's refreshing in a world where every single pretty location seems to get ruined by overcrowding the second it gets discovered. This is the kind of place where you bring a cooler, spread out a blanket, and just exist quietly for a few hours without your phone buzzing every 5 minutes demanding your attention. If you're building out a weekend itinerary around chasing blue water spots across the state, Tirati works beautifully as a peaceful afternoon stop before you head somewhere bigger and louder later in the day. It's proof that sometimes the most relaxing version of natural beauty isn't the most dramatic one you can find. It's simply the one that actually lets you slow down and breathe for once. Number 8. Blue Hole Catskills. Now we're stepping things up, both in raw beauty and in sheer popularity, with a spot that has practically exploded online over the past few years. Blue Hole sits deep inside the Catskill Mountains, fed entirely by natural underground spring water that stays shockingly cold even when the air temperature outside is sitting in the high 80s or 90s during peak summer. The water here genuinely earns its name, a deep, almost unreal shade of blue that looks more like something pulled from a mountain postcard than an actual swimming hole sitting just 40 minutes outside a regular small town. Here's the thing though, this place got so popular so quickly that local authorities actually had to step in and require a day-use permit just to control how many people were showing up. That alone should tell you everything you need to know about how special this spot really is. People aren't just stumbling onto Blue Hole by accident anymore. They're planning entire weekend trips around it, booking permits weeks in advance, and showing up with cameras and drones ready, because the payoff genuinely lives up to the hype every single time. The water gets fed by underground springs rather than surface runoff, which explains a lot about why it stays so clear and so consistently cold, even on the hottest days of summer when every other lake in the area feels lukewarm. Locals will tell you straight up it's not for the faint of heart. Jumping in feels like a genuine shock to your system the first few seconds, but almost everybody agrees it's completely worth it once your body adjusts. Around the swimming area itself, the surrounding rocks and dense tree cover give the whole place a private, almost secret feeling, even though plenty of other visitors are usually scattered around enjoying the exact same view at the same time. If you're someone who wants more than just a pretty photo for your feed, if you actually want a full sensory experience, an icy plunge into water this impossibly blue is genuinely hard to beat anywhere else on this list. Just make sure you check the current permit situation before driving all the way out there, because the rangers really do enforce it now, and showing up without one means you'll be turned away at the entrance. Number 7. Lake Awasting, Minnewaska State Park. This next one rewards a little bit of effort, and honestly, that effort ends up being part of exactly what makes it so memorable once you finally get there. Lake Awasting sits inside Minnewaska State Park, perched up along the Shawangunk Ridge, and actually reaching it usually means committing to a 3 to 5 mile trek along a carriage road, depending on which entrance you start from and how scenic of a route you want to take. There's no quick parking lot sitting right next to the water here, which naturally filters out anyone who isn't genuinely willing to put in a bit of physical effort, and that's exactly why this lake manages to stay so quiet and peaceful compared to busier, more accessible spots on this list. What you're slowly walking toward as you make your way down that carriage road is something known as a sky lake, meaning it gets fed entirely by rainfall rather than rivers, streams, or any kind of runoff. No incoming water also means no incoming sediment or pollution, and that's exactly why the lake stays remarkably clean and remarkably clear, holding on to that gorgeous, almost artificial-looking shade of blue against the dramatic backdrop of surrounding cliffs. The shoreline here isn't sandy at all. It's actually one massive slab of smooth rock that slopes gently down into the water, Almost like nature built its own private diving platform specifically for swimmers willing to make the journey. Once you finally arrive after that hike or bike ride, jumping straight into the lake feels like the perfect reward, and the cool water hits completely differently after working up a sweat just to get there in the first place. Scuba divers actually come out to this exact spot specifically for the underwater visibility, which says a whole lot about how genuinely clear this water is once you get below the surface. If your audience leans toward loving a bit of adventure, mixed into their travel content rather than just passive sightseeing, this is absolutely the spot to highlight, because it's not just about staring at pretty water from a distance, it's about earning that view through real physical effort first. Number 6, Round Lake, Green Lakes State Park. Now we're stepping into genuinely rare territory, and I mean that literally, not just for dramatic effect. Round Lake sits inside Green Lake State Park near the town of Fayetteville, and it belongs to one of the rarest categories of lake found anywhere on the entire planet, something scientists call a miromictic lake. There are only about a dozen of these scattered across the entire United States and just over 50 total worldwide, which makes finding 2 of them sitting side by side inside one single New York park feel almost impossibly lucky. What makes Miromictic lakes so genuinely unique is that their water layers never mix together the way a normal lake's water does throughout the changing seasons. The surface stays consistently warm, the depths stay consistently cold and mineral-rich, and the 2 layers simply never blend, season after season, year after year. That permanent separation is part of the exact reason the water here takes on such a striking, almost tropical, blue-green tone that feels completely out of place sitting next to the surrounding maple and oak trees you'd expect in upstate New York. Round Lake doesn't get nearly the same attention as its more famous twin sister lake sitting in the same park, which honestly only makes it feel like even more of a hidden discovery the moment you actually show up and see it for yourself. Walking trails wrap gently around the edges of the lake, giving you constant little opportunities to stop, lean against a railing or a tree, and just stare at how unnaturally clear and colorful the water genuinely looks from every single angle. It's the kind of place where photos genuinely don't need any filter, any editing, or any color correction whatsoever. The color is already doing all the heavy lifting completely on its own. If you're chasing that exact "wait, this is actually real and not edited" reaction from your viewers, this lake delivers that reaction without you needing to exaggerate a single detail in your script. Number 5, Blue Mountain Lake, Adirondacks. We're climbing higher now, both literally in elevation and figuratively in terms of how stunning these next few spots get. Blue Mountain Lake sits deep in the heart of the Adirondack Mountains, and it's not just a lake sitting in the middle of nowhere, it's an entire small hamlet built directly around the water, complete with its own little museum dedicated entirely to regional Adirondack history and culture. The lake wraps gently around the eastern shore of the town, and from nearly any angle you choose to stand at, you get sweeping, postcard-worthy views of mountains framing that brilliant blue water sitting below them. This isn't a single isolated body of water either. It actually connects into an entire chain of smaller lakes and winding waterways, which makes the whole area an absolute dream destination for anyone who loves canoeing or kayaking for extended periods of time. Paddlers can genuinely spend a full day exploring different pockets of that connected chain without ever really leaving the same general region, discovering quiet little coves and hidden inlets that most casual day trip visitors never even bother searching for. Mornings out here often bring the sound of loons calling across the still water, adding this almost cinematic natural soundtrack to the entire paddling experience that you simply can't recreate anywhere else. As the sun starts dipping lower in the sky, the lake gradually shifts from that crisp daytime blue into deep amber and gold tones, creating one of those slow transitions that genuinely looks far better in person than any camera, no matter how expensive, can ever fully capture on screen. The surrounding Adirondack forest feels practically endless, swallowing up any distant noise from nearby roads or small towns, leaving you with nothing but the sound of water, wind through trees, and open sky stretching overhead. People who visit this lake often admit they originally planned to stay just one single night, only to end up staying several extra days simply because the entire place carries this quiet, magnetic pull that makes leaving feel genuinely premature every single time. If your viewers happen to be the type who daydream about completely disconnecting from everything for a few peaceful days, this is exactly the spot to plant that idea firmly in their heads. Before we get into the final 5 spots, and trust me, these next ones are absolutely worth sticking around for, go ahead and tap that subscribe button if you've been enjoying this so far. I'm covering hidden natural spots just like these across the entire country, and you genuinely don't want to miss whichever location ends up next. Number 4. Lake Minnewaska, Minnewaska State Park. This next lake has earned itself a genuine reputation as one of the cleanest swimming spots anywhere in the entire state, and once you understand exactly why, it makes complete and total sense. Lake Minnewaska is another one of these so-called sky lakes, meaning rainfall is its only real water source, with absolutely zero rivers or streams feeding directly into it from anywhere nearby. No incoming water source also means no incoming pollution, no runoff carrying sediment, fertilizer, or debris from surrounding land. Just clean rain falling directly into a natural basin surrounded by dramatic rocky cliffs along the Shawangunk Ridge. The end result is water so consistently clear and so genuinely clean that it's widely considered one of the safest, most pristine places to swim anywhere near the entire Hudson Valley region. Unlike its sister Lake Awasting just a few miles away, this particular lake is incredibly easy to reach. Just a short walk from the main parking area, which means you don't need to plan out some entire physical expedition just to enjoy a swim here like you would with some of the other spots on this list. There's a small designated beach, a dock perfect for sunning yourself or jumping straight off into the water, clearly marked swimming lanes, and trained lifeguards on duty throughout the official season, so this spot works just as well for a relaxed family afternoon as it does for more adventurous swimmers looking for a real workout. The cliffs surrounding the entire lake aren't just there for scenery either. They're genuinely popular among rock climbers and hikers who use the elevated surrounding trails to get sweeping panoramic views looking straight down into that brilliant blue water below them. Because the lake itself sits up on a ridge rather than tucked into a low-lying valley like most lakes, you get this unusual, almost surreal sensation of swimming nearly on top of the surrounding landscape rather than feeling tucked beneath it. The water's slightly elevated acidity, a small detail most casual visitors never even think twice about, actually plays a major role in keeping everything pristine and clear while they're floating around enjoying their afternoon. This is genuinely the kind of place that photographs beautifully no matter which angle you choose to shoot from, the cliffs, the open water, and the open sky all working together in perfect harmony. Number 3. Green Lakes State Park. We're heading back to Green Lakes State Park, but this time we're talking about the true main attraction, the actual lake the entire park gets its name from. Green Lake is the more famous of the 2 Meramectic lakes sitting near the town of Fayetteville, and it's widely considered one of the single most thoroughly studied lakes of its specific kind anywhere on the entire planet. Scientists have spent years carefully examining its distinct water layers, but you genuinely don't need any kind of science background whatsoever to appreciate exactly why it looks the way it does once you see it in person. The blue-green coloring comes directly from calcium carbonate naturally present in the water, a specific mineral that keeps everything crystal clear while completely preventing the typical seasonal mixing that ends up muddying most ordinary lakes throughout the year. These particular lakes actually formed somewhere around 15,000 years ago, originally carved out by massive waterfalls left behind from the final stages of the last ice age, which is a genuinely wild thing to sit and think about while you're floating peacefully on the calm surface today. There's an official swimming beach sitting right along the North Shore where visitors can wade in safely without any real risk, plus boat rentals available for anyone who wants to glide further out toward the middle and get a completely different angle on the surrounding old-growth forest hugging the shoreline. One of the genuinely coolest things you can actually do here is rent one of the clear-bottomed kayaks, letting you paddle calmly across the surface while literally watching fish, sunken logs, and the lake floor itself pass directly beneath your feet like you're floating across solid glass. Every single spring, something called a whiting event happens here, where the water briefly turns almost milky white as tiny microorganisms react chemically with the calcium present in the lake, dropping tiny crystals down toward the floor in a strange, genuinely beautiful natural phenomenon that most visitors have never even heard of before arriving. The surrounding trail loop passes right by spots like Dead Man's Point, a natural rock reef with a slightly eerie name attached to it, but absolutely stunning, unobstructed views of the water sitting just below it. This particular lake checks off every single box you could possibly want: rare natural science, genuine geological history, and visuals that simply don't need any kind of exaggeration whatsoever to leave people impressed. Number 2, Mirror Lake, Lake Placid. We're closing in on the very top spot now, and this particular lake earns its name in the most literal way physically possible. Mirror Lake sits right beside the village of Lake Placid, and on a calm, still morning, the water turns so perfectly smooth and so genuinely clear that the surrounding mountains and trees reflect almost flawlessly across the surface, creating what genuinely looks like an entire second landscape sitting just below the waterline. People who visit this lake often describe stopping completely mid-conversation just to stare in silence, because that reflection effect genuinely catches you off guard the very first time you witness it in person, rather than just seeing it through a photo on a screen. What makes this particular spot extra special for casual visitors is how genuinely accessible it actually is, compared to almost everything else on this entire list. Mirror Lake Drive runs directly along the shoreline, so you don't need to hike for hours, paddle out far, or plan some massive expedition just to get a good clear view. You can practically pull your car over and walk straight up to the water's edge within minutes. Compared to some of the much larger lakes we've already covered on this list, Mirror Lake feels genuinely intimate, almost private, even with the entire village sitting right next door. Summer here brings swimmers out in massive numbers, while winter completely transforms the same surface into a natural ice rink, with skaters gliding effortlessly across water that was crystal clear and fully liquid just a few short months earlier in the year. That kind of dramatic seasonal transformation gives this particular lake a genuine year-round appeal that most other blue water lakes simply can't match, since the vast majority of these spots are realistically only worth visiting during the warmer summer months. Because the village of Lake Placid surrounds the entire lake, you've also got restaurants, local shops, and comfortable places to stay, all within easy walking distance, making this one of the easiest spots on this entire list to comfortably turn into a proper weekend getaway rather than just a quick, rushed afternoon stop. It earns its solid spot at number 2, not just because of how incredible it genuinely looks, but because of how effortlessly beautiful it manages to make absolutely everything around it feel in every single season of the year, without exception. Quick favor, before we get into the final lake, the one I genuinely believe is the single bluest body of water you'll find absolutely anywhere across this entire state. If you've made it this far into the video, drop a quick comment letting me know which one of these spots you'd actually want to visit first. I genuinely read every single comment, and it directly helps me figure out exactly which hidden gems to go dig up next for future videos. Number 1. Skaneateles Lake, Finger Lakes. And here it finally is, the lake that the vast majority of people genuinely consider to be the single bluest body of water anywhere in all of New York State. Skaneateles Lake sits right in the heart of the Finger Lakes region, and what truly sets it apart from absolutely everything else on this entire list isn't just the color of the water itself, it's exactly how unbelievably clean that water genuinely is. This particular lake ranks among the cleanest bodies of water anywhere in the entire country, and that incredible level of cleanliness is exactly why the water ends up reflecting such a vivid, almost completely unreal shade of blue every single time the sun hits it just right. There's barely any biological buildup present in the water at all, no thick layers of algae, no clouds of sediment muddying things up beneath the surface, which means sunlight is able to travel much deeper into the lake and bounce back in a way that creates that exact signature brilliant blue color people genuinely travel hours and hours just to witness in person. The The small town wrapped around the lake matches the beauty of the water itself perfectly, with charming little local shops, cozy lakeside restaurants, and busy docks where boats of every possible size come and go constantly throughout the entire summer season. People don't just visit Skeneatles to look at the lake from a safe distance on the shore either. They actually get out on the water itself. Whether that means kayaking quietly along the edges, sailing confidently across the open middle section, or simply floating around lazily on a calm afternoon, soaking in views that most people assume could only possibly exist somewhere tropical and far away. What's genuinely interesting here is that scientists actually point toward a specific combination of factors creating that incredible signature blue tone, partly the noticeable lack of biological activity sitting in the water, and partly simple physics, specifically the exact way natural light interacts with the depth and clarity of the lake itself. You honestly don't need to fully understand any of the underlying science to appreciate the stunning result, though. You really just need to stand quietly on the shore and witness it for yourself in person. Locals here clearly take genuine pride in keeping the lake this pristine too, treating the entire body of water almost like a shared community treasure, rather than just another piece of passive scenery to look at. After everything else we've covered on this entire list, the mountain hikes, the rare Miramitic lakes, the hidden spring-fed swimming holes, it honestly feels fitting that the single bluest water in the entire state turns out to be sitting quietly inside a small, welcoming town that most people outside of New York have probably never even heard of before today. That's really the whole magic behind this entire list. The most genuinely breathtaking places out there aren't always the loudest or the most famous ones getting all the attention. Sometimes they're simply quietly waiting inside some small, unassuming town for someone to finally show up and actually notice them. And that officially wraps up our full countdown of the bluest water hiding across New York State. If this video genuinely opened your eyes to a side of this state you never even knew existed before today, do me a quick favor and share it with someone you know who's always talking about wanting to travel more without spending an absolute fortune on plane tickets just to feel like they've actually been somewhere. Most of these incredible spots are honestly just an easy drive away from wherever you're sitting right now, and they genuinely deserve way more attention than they're currently getting from the average traveler. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't end up missing the next Hidden Gems video. Because trust me on this one, New York still has plenty more genuine surprises left for us to uncover together.